Hello and welcome to Shirley's weekly Game of Thrones roundup. Now, I may have already watched this episode when it was leaked on Thursday. I may have, but then I may not. No one can really say. What I will say though is this was the best episode ever. Okay, so let's get into it. The first thing I'm going to say is I'm really enjoying all of the callbacks that are being thrown in this season. There seems to be maybe 4 or 5 per episode, which is really wonderful because it makes sense that in an 8-season series, these characters, a few of whom started out as children, would end up reflecting on their knowledge, later on down the line, repeating things from other characters or sharing the wisdom they've gleaned over their story arc with the new characters they interact with. Because of that, I've installed a new callback alarm. So anytime in this video you hear this noise, callback alert! It means I've found a callback I want to share and analyse with you. So keep an eye out for those and let me know in the comments if you find any that I haven't mentioned. I was really worried that this season was going to be poorly written because now we've gone so far off book. But I have to say it's still as clever and exciting as ever. Okay, so in some areas the characterization could be a little bit better. I'm looking at you, Jon Snow and Tyrion Lannister. But the writing is still very sharp and never fails to get me covered in my own nerdgasm juice every week. So with that delightful image in mind, let's begin. We start on a scene with Jaime and Bronn taking their loot back from the Reach. This is setting the scene for the battle later on. What interests me most about this is the dialogue between Jaime and Bronn. Bronn is clearly pretty pissed that he's not getting everything that he's been promised from the Lannisters, like a nice castle or a more beautiful highborn bride, and his impatience is really starting to show. I believe that this is a hint that he'll be defecting to Team Daenerys next episode. Then we go over to King's Landing and Cersei is having another meeting with Mark Gatiss of the Iron Bank. Is he Tychonosaurus or whatever he's called in the book? Or has he got a different name? I don't know. Iron Bank Clark guy. Big thing I took away from this scene was woohoo! Golden Company reference. I don't think they've been mentioned in the show so far, but this is a sellsword company based in Essos that was founded by a Targaryen bastard named Bittersteel. In the books, they are supporting Aegon Targaryen in his conquest of Westeros, which happens at the end of A Dance with Dragons. But that's the plot line that the show, much to my relief, chose to leave out. So I'm guessing the Golden Company is mentioned here maybe as a little bit of a placation of book fans. The line "you can count on the Iron Bank when the gold arrives" tells us as viewers that obviously the gold is never going to arrive. And this is probably the end of Cersei's winning streak. And then we go to Winterfell. This scene with Bran and Littlefinger was pretty interesting. Here we see Littlefinger trying to station himself firmly in the good books of who he believes is the new Lord of Winterfell. The best thing about this scene was callback alert! Did anyone else scream when Bran said chaos is a ladder? Oh, that was a bloody good moment, wasn't it? Littlefinger's starting to get a bit worried. And then Mira comes in and oh, poor Mira. She lost absolutely everything trying to help Bran with his mission, and because he's tree internet now, he just discards her because he doesn't need her anymore. And I guess that means this season we're not going to see Grey Water Watch, which I was really hoping we would. I really hope we see Mira again though. Now, as I've mentioned, I do have a theory that Bran is going to end up being the Night King. Like maybe he'll get stuck in the past and, you know, will be turned by the Children of the Forest or by the White Walkers themselves. I don't know. I can't be bothered really going into theories. There's millions of theory videos out there which are really well produced and well made and far better than I could do at this point anyway. I feel like this could end up coming down to a stark on stark face-off between Jon and Bran. There's a theory out there that that very first scene in the books and the show when Sir Waymar Royce is killed by the White Walkers and then Garrett in the books and Will in the show runs off to escape them and is beheaded by Ned Stark at Winterfell. Waymar Royce is described in the books as looking very similar to Jon. There's a theory that the White Walkers are looking for Jon in a kind of like the Terminator coming after Sarah Connor, or in Terminator 2 coming after John Connor because he's going to lead the army of men in the war against the machines. In that kind of way, like they're looking for Jon to take him out before it happens. I love that theory and I really hope this is true. Someone said the other day, like watching this, a couple of Bran's scenes this season, is that it is starting to seem a little bit like it could be a villain origin story. This possibly could be the direction that we're being pointed in with Bran's character. Through the eyes of his family throughout the books, we're told how lovely and sweet a child Bran is. To hear how he's lost his identity to become the three-eyed raven now is really, really sad. And the fact that we're given all of these clues about how he's definitely not yet in control of his powers and is very overwhelmed by them suggests that unless he does get in control of them, more Hodor-style incidents could happen, and the cost could be really immense. And I was not prepared at all for what happened in the next scene. Arya's return to Winterfell. Holy shit. 3 out of my 4 wolf babes are finally back home. Callback alert! The 2 guards refusing to let Arya into Winterfell is obviously a callback to season 1, where she's been chasing cats through the Red Keep and comes up to the guards outside and is covered in filth and looks just like a little urchin, and they refuse to let her in until she says, well, my father's the hand of the king, so you should really fucking let me in, or it might go badly for you. I was in bits during this scene. Arya looking around Winterfell while the Stark theme plays. I know some people have said that they get the feeling that she didn't necessarily feel like she was home because she's changed so much, but that's not what I picked up off this scene. I picked up a sense of like, wow, can't quite believe I actually made it. I really enjoyed the guards making excuses and fretting as they try and explain to Sansa where Arya got to. I like seeing my girl Sansa being treated like the power she is. Now, Arya and Sansa's reunion was wonderful. It's so nice seeing Sophie Turner and Maisie Williams doing scenes together because they're like best friends in real life, and I read an interview where they were saying like it was really hard to get into character because they're just not used to it. There was a lot of speculation about how stilted their reunion would be because they were never close as kids. In fact, they used to fight pretty savagely as kids. But that's because they were sweet summer children, and now winter has come for them. They realise how much they love and need each other. When Arya says, "Do I have to call you Lady Stark now?" and Sansa cracks a joke and goes, "Yeah." That was pretty wonderful. I love the fact that Arya seems a bit unsure, and then Sansa goes and hugs her, and then the second hug a few minutes later is instigated by Arya. I was a bit worried about Sansa's choice of words though when she said, "When Jon sees you, his heart will probably stop." I really hope that's not supposed to mean anything. Now, the line, "Our stories aren't over yet," was pretty powerful. The strength and defiance of these young women and the newfound power that they're drawing from being back at home and being with their family, it's so palpable. I think that Sansa laughs at the idea of Arya's list because at first she thinks it's supposed to be a joke. It's kind of like, I relate. I'd love to kill some people too. And Arya's used to people not taking her seriously and even thrives off it and uses it to her advantage. She is an assassin, after all. But then in the Godswood later on, when Sansa inquires further about Arya's list, she seems fully on board with the idea. With Sansa's brains and Arya's skill, these two could be an unstoppable revenge machine. Maybe they'll get a little bit of Lady Stoneheart's plot from the books, who knows? So we were all freaking out when we saw that Entertainment Weekly cover of the Stark kids all together, and Arya is wearing the cat's paw Valyrian steel dagger on her hip. We all recognised it and we all freaked out, being like, oh my god, what does this mean? That's Littlefinger's knife. Oh my god. And we were all kind of hoping it meant she was going to be killing Littlefinger. The truth seems to be a little bit more prosaic than that so far, but Arya having a Valyrian steel weapon has huge implications. And the fact that Bran, the all-seeing eye, has given it to her, that's huge. That's very interesting indeed, and clearly it means that Arya is going to need it for some very important reason. Sansa is getting nervous about Littlefinger creeping around her brother and wondering why he would give him anything, because he's not a generous man and he must want something in return. She is so onto him, trying to worm his way further into her family. This shot of Bran and Arya and Sansa are walking together through the courtyard was possibly the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. And no, that's not an exaggeration. Jon, please hurry up and mine the dragon glass so you can go back and be with them. And now we go over to Dragonstone. I like the little non-narrative conversations we get between characters, such as Dany and Missandei having a little girly gossip about Grey Worm. I also wasn't sure if that look that Missandei gave Dany when Jon calls Dany over was her being a bit embarrassed of like, okay, we'll talk about Grey Worm a bit later, or maybe it was, oh look, your boyfriend's calling, your grace. And it's interesting that they're just talking about the Lord's kiss just before Jon leads her into a cave. Bit on the nose, like. Now I want to say, I think the way that Jon and Daenerys' interactions are being written is pretty cheesy. Like, okay, we know they're going to fuck. The way that Jon did that classic patronising man move of holding her to move her over to hold the torch up on a certain bit of the wall instead of just like moving the fucking light. That was really annoying. It may be because this is just something I dislike anyway, but also because it's not Jon Snow. Like, he's not a flirtatious man. And even if he was thinking about how much he fancied her, he'd be racked with internal conflict and angst about it, about how he doesn't want to father a bastard. And also, he was in the Night's Watch for years and he was conditioned, like, to be celibate. I know, yeah, okay, he broke those vows, but that was different. That was an infiltration mission. I just don't buy that Jon would start acting like every fucking classic flirty male romantic protagonist in any movie and doing those kind of moves on a girl that he fancied. It really annoyed me. It was just sloppy romance plot 101, and this show is better than that, and that's why I love it. If they have to fuck, I would rather it happen by them being like, okay, we're both at loggerheads, I won't kneel, you won't agree to me not kneeling, so let's just form an alliance by getting married. And then through that, them learning to love each other rather than this boy meets girl, oh, let's act all modern and flirt like we're not in the Middle Ages and have completely different expectations of love and romance and marriage and all that crap. Now, here's the thing. Did the dragons at Dragonstone not make the dragon glass by like breathing fire on it or something? Is that not where the dragon glass is supposed to have come from? So how long ago were the children of the forest here to make cave paintings about it? Because I thought that all happened thousands of years ago. How long ago did the Targaryens establish Dragonstone as their trading outpost in Westeros? Is this a plot hole? Answers on a postcard, or, you know, in the comments. So obviously, I guess we're supposed to think the very fact that they're in a cave means that they're about to rip each other's clothes off there and then, since Jon has a bit of form in that area. But no, just lots of sexual tension and long lingering glances. The very fact that they introduced a new musical leitmotif suggests that Jon and Daenerys are going to be very important to each other in some way or another. And I'm sorry that I can't insert it here, but go back to the cave scene and rewatch it and listen to the music in the background. That's new. I haven't heard that before, so I'm guessing that's going to be Jon and Dany's theme going forward. Callback alert! Daenerys uses almost word for word the argument that Jon uses to Mance Rayder when he's trying to convince him to kneel to Stannis in order to save the lives of the free folk. The line is, isn't your people's survival more important than your pride? That's the second time she's unknowingly used Jon's own logic against him, which at the very least shows that they think in a similar way. Whether using this particular argument makes Jon more or less likely to acquiesce remains to be seen. I think Tormund was right when he said to Jon, you spent too much time with the free folk and you can never be a kneeler again. I don't know, it could go either way. We don't get that answer in this scene, and who knows when we will. I really hope he doesn't do it because the North being independent is really important to me, but I think Jon is Jon and he's so focused on the White Walker threat that he'll do anything to save his people. But I do think that if he does bend the knee, I'd imagine that'll result in Sansa being crowned queen in the North or something back in Winterfell, because I just don't see the Northerners becoming part of the Seven Kingdoms again without a lot of kerfuffle occurring as a result. So then they walk out of the cave and there's Tyrion and Varys looking a little bit glum and explaining what happened at Casterly Rock. It was pretty funny, Jon rolling his eyes when Daenerys shouts at him, "You will stay!" Her complaining now that her armies won't be able to eat because the Reach has been emptied of food is slightly undermined by the fact that later on she burns a shit ton of the wagons, but we'll get to that in a little while. I liked her rounding on Tyrion and saying maybe you don't want to defeat your family after all. It obviously hurts his feelings, but it's a reasonable thought, and I would be thinking the exact same thing. She made him hand because he seemed to be the most strategic and well-informed person that she had at her disposal in order to conquer Westeros. And now he's up against his own family, he's fucking things up. He's clearly underestimated them, as have all of us. So far, Cersei and Jaime are playing a blinder, and we really thought that Daenerys was going to wipe the floor with them, so credit where credit's due. And I liked what Jon said to Daenerys about how if she uses her dragons to melt castles and burn cities, she's not different, she's more of the same. I've also noted how much Jon has been swearing this season. There was a commentary from an episode like years ago where Kit was complaining that he was one of the only cast members who hadn't been given any decent swearing to do. So it seems like the writers are really making up for it this season as it's all winding up to a close. So the fact that Daenerys then flies off to attack the Lannister army, I guess was a bit of a compromise between her wanting to go and melt the shit out of the Red Keep and everyone else telling her not to. I guess the army is a fairer target than a castle or a city. I do hope this makes Jon go off her a little bit, but I think they're just ramming the Targ cest down our throats at this point, so no doubt they'll find a way next episode for Jon to be completely fine with it. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself because in the next scene we go back to Winterfell and Brienne and Arya training together. Holy shit, this was bloody amazing, wasn't it? I really think Oathkeeper ought to have shattered Needle into like 1,000 pieces. Obviously, I'm glad that it didn't. I would be interested to hear from someone who knows about such things if tiny but quick Arya would stand a chance against someone as big and strong as Brienne, and with a sword like Oathkeeper, which is superior metal and fucking huge and heavy. But regardless of the realism of it, it was dead good to watch. All the girls are becoming such a force to be reckoned with in this show. And 3 of my faves all teaming up on the same side is just the greatest thing ever. Sansa watching as they spar together. Obviously, the fandom has found other ways to say that this proves that she's the worst person ever. I forget how. I mean, every time Sansa lifts an eyebrow, apparently it's proof that she's the devil or Hitler or Stalin or a big fucking combination of all of them. I think Sansa's expression while she's watching Arya fight is, oh shit, maybe she wasn't kidding about her list. Back to Dragonstone and this Jon and Davos conversation. Ugh, confirmation that Jon fancies Daenerys. Okay, we get it. Fucking hell. Callback alert! Davos correcting Jon's grammar and telling him he should be saying fewer instead of less. He learned from grammar Nazi Stannis. That was quite funny. And their conversation with Missandei about how Daenerys is the queen that they chose because of her intentions and her good heart instead of just the daughter of some king that they never knew. It's a direct parallel to Jon, who was chosen despite having no claim to lead the North. This next Jon and Theon scene, I knew it was coming because when I was weak in the off-season, I looked at some of the spoiler pictures, and this is one of the ones that the paparazzi got from flying a drone over the set in Spain or whatever. And so I knew it was coming and I was really looking forward to it. I'm loving this new unleashed Jon. Now, as I've mentioned before, I haven't forgiven Theon ever for what he did to the Starks. And I kind of wish Jon had like roughed him up a little bit more, but never mind. He definitely looks like he's about to / may have actually shit himself, which will do for now. Okay, here we fucking go. Field of Fire 2.0. How great was it to see a battle scene focused in on some characters other than Jon for once? All of the 3 other big major battles that we've had, Hardhome, Watchers on the Wall and Battle of the Bastards, all had Jon in them as the focal character. It was really nice to have somebody else be given those kind of scenes for once. I hope we get a lot more of this as we get into the final sort of stride of Game of Thrones. We immediately established that the gold is all in King's Landing and the army is stretched a little bit thin with the wagon train. So that's a hint that they are, and I believe this is a technical term, fucked. And after all these seasons, after being warned by Robert Baratheon in season 1, we finally get to see what everyone's been shitting themselves over, the Dothraki fighting on an open field and how unstoppable they are. And oh my days, it was glorious. This was serious battle porn. The clash of cultures and fighting styles was so interesting and so cool to watch. The Lannister army look like they already know they're finished even before they hear Drogon screaming off in the distance. Those who get hit by the first wave of dragonfire just turn to ash, which just goes to show just how hot dragonfire is. A hole is burned through the Lannisters' line and then the Dothraki pour right through it. And I'm going to say right now, I have never seen anything cooler in my life than the Dothraki jumping up into a standing position on their horses and firing arrows, and slashing with their arcs. So fucking cool. Like I already mentioned earlier on in this video, why the hell is Dany burning all the wagons? She's already said she needs all that food for her armies. We know that it's winter now, and we know that that's the entire harvest of the Reach, which is the most fertile area of Westeros. Drogon is literally following the road along, just burning all the fucking wagons. It seems like that must be a decision that's going to bite her in the ass pretty badly in the coming episodes. The weaving together of Dany's theme and the Reigns of Castamere was a really epic touch. I feel like this is something that will happen more and more as different forces clash and fight each other or unite, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what the composer does with that. This continuous shot of Bronn running through the chaos trying to find the wagon holding the scorpion is really, really cool. It's the same technique they used in Battle of the Bastards and also Hardhome, where they follow Jon and he's just like hacking and slashing at people. It's such a great technique and it adds so much drama and excitement to the storytelling. Oh man, this season is just immense. Watching this scene was so exciting because I didn't want any of those people to die, or the dragon. This is the first time that instead of just fighting red shirts, We've got two groups of characters that we care about clashing, and we don't know who to root for. We don't want anyone to win or to lose. The fact we were given Arya's scene meeting the Lannister soldiers back in episode 1 of this season to humanise them and just see that they're just farm boys who are just unlucky enough to have been born in the Westerlands and so get enlisted in someone else's fucking war and then get burned to a crisp by a fucking dragon. It's horrible. I even found myself worrying for Jaime in this scene, which was an emotion I didn't think that I would have because he's like my least favourite character, but when things started going wrong for him, I felt pretty upset. That was weird. And I was obviously very relieved that Bronn didn't score a direct hit on Drogon. Dragon riders can only ride one dragon, right? You have the bond between the rider and the dragon, and people, like there's a precedent in I think the Dance with Dragons war between the Targaryen bastards and the Trueborns when someone tried to ride someone else's dragon and the dragon was not happy about it. So if anything happened to Drogon, then there would be no more flying of dragons. And that can't happen, right? And there's a lot of rumours flying around about this season that Daenerys is going to lose one of her dragons. But it can't be Drogon because we know that the dragons are very important in fighting the White Walkers and therefore we need the one dragon that is currently rideable to be alive. And don't say that Jon's going to ride a dragon. Oh my god, if he does, I'm just going to puke all over all of you because ugh. Tyrion appearing to witness the carnage is really, really sad. He's obviously really horrified and his loyalties are torn. There's the side that he's on and the queen he believes in versus his brother who he absolutely loves. I loved him swearing under his breath at Jaime, "Flee, you fucking idiot, you fucking idiot." He knows his stupid, heroic warrior brother and he knows exactly what he's about to do. He's already had his loyalties questioned once this episode. He can't do anything other than just stand there and watch his brother suicidally charge at his queen and her fucking dragon. And that must be so, so hard to watch. And Bronn, or whoever that was, well done for knocking him off his horse into a river while he's wearing armour, you bloody idiot. I mean, well done for saving him, but also, he's wearing armour, you tit. What are you thinking? That concludes my review, and now I'm going to do a couple of predictions. Jaime is going to be Daenerys' prisoner in the next few episodes. Maybe it means that Tyrion will free him the way that Jaime freed Tyrion when he was a prisoner. I don't know. I kind of hope that Jaime might defect and turn on Cersei, but at the same time I sort of think that's probably not that likely. I don't know. Bronn, on the other hand, Bronn is definitely going to defect. There's no way Bronn's not going to defect. He's a sellsword. He fights for money. He doesn't have house loyalty. All he cares about is getting paid, and it was established at the beginning of the episode the Lannisters aren't paying him as much as he wants. So all he's got to do now is go to Daenerys and be like, "Give me Highgarden and I'll fight for you." And she's got herself a new badass on her side. Now I'm pretty sure Jorah Mormont must be showing up back at Dragonstone pretty soon. I hope it's while Jon's there so we can have a little conversation between them about Jorah Mormont and how he was a bit of a father figure to Jon. But I think Jorah's gonna be pretty butthurt when he sees that not only has Jon got the Mormont's ancestral sword, but he's also moving in on the love of Jorah's life, Daenerys. I think Jon being Jon, he'll probably offer Longclaw back to Jorah and Jorah will refuse because he'll be like, "You're more worthy of it than me." I fucking hope so anyway, because Jon's definitely going to be needing Valyrian steel for when the long night comes. Oh yeah, and obviously Jon and Daenerys are going to get it on next week. Yawn. Last but not least, the original title for next week's episode was Blood of the Dragon, and they've now changed it to Eastwatch. So I'm guessing this is where we get the scenes where Jon's gone beyond the wall with a bunch of people that we saw in the trailer. But the Blood of the Dragon episode, which is now episode 6, is that when Jon's gonna find out he's a Targaryen? Oh my god. This season is just treat after treat after treat. It seems really, really strange that each episode just gets better every week, but I really hope it manages to keep up this phenomenal standard. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel. Please like and leave a comment if you liked the video, and I will see you all next week. Bye!